is just they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. There's going to be a stretch of 9 minutes of basketball where you're going to be like, did they forget how to play basketball? And it's because other teams are more talented and other teams are more experienced and other teams are on a different journey to where their success lies. But that's how I'm going to make peace with the Blazers this year. Now, speaking of analogies, we have fallen back in the world. We changed the clocks yet again. I thought a couple of years ago there was going to be a glimmer of hope. I thought a couple of years ago there was going to be a glimmer of hope that maybe, much like Phoenix, Arizona, who just said, we ain't changing our clocks. Yeah, we're not doing it. It's silly. We got plenty of sun. We don't need to have daylight savings. We got plenty of sun here. It's the Valley of the Sun, for crying out loud. And for a moment it looked like maybe, just maybe, we were going to stop. And it's like, nope, we keep going along with it.
How can we not agree on this? We don't agree on much, but how can we not agree on this? Because everyone pretty much is in unison.
And also, give me one case. Give me one. I am here. I am of the marketplace of ideas. I am all for a good idea, and I will leech on to a good idea, even if it's not my own. I am in the marketplace of ideas. Give me one good reason why we changed the clocks in 2024. Give me one. Because there is
farmers.
No, see, it's funny. I used to think that.
I just said tongue in cheek.
And plus, you know it triggers me
I do.
too. I used to think that way, and then I talked to a farmer, and a farmer was like, it doesn't matter what time the clock is. I get up with the sun. Mother Nature gets the farmers up. That's when the rooster crows, and that's when the farmers go to work. They work whenever the sun is out. They always say, make hay while the sun is shining. I had a football coach who used to say that. Oh, great day. We got to make hay while the sun is shining, boys. That meant we were going to run a lot. But, yeah, so as not because of farmers. Now, if you look back at daylight savings history, it really was put in place to screw over workers in factories because we didn't have electricity. So they wanted it to be the normal working hours, the 9 to 5, in as much daylight as possible. Well, guess what? Old Thomas Edison fixed that for us a long, long time ago.
Yeah, a couple problems with that, Justin. You're absolutely right. Because a quick little search of the old Google machine says that war apparently put our little nation into the First World War into some dire straits, and they said it would save us $4 million a day on power.
Yes.
So that's one. Number two.
Which again, that was World War I.
Yes.
That was the 19-teens.
That's number two. It was signed into law by Woodrow Wilson in 1918. Again, we don't even call the high school down here Woodrow Wilson anymore because he's kind of a complicated figure. So why don't we just blame time change on him and say, yeah, that was
Wilson the one they thought was in like a coma and that the first lady was running the country for a while?
I don't know.
Was that
my presidential history fails me a little pre-World War II, to be
Woodrow,
honest with you.
Woodrow Wilson?
But I'm
Do
just
we
sitting
even
there
know
and
if
I'm like,
Woodrow Wilson signed this one? Or
I'm like, but come on, Justin. Like, we can't repeal a law that was passed 106 years ago. Anywho, that's my gripe on that for today. I told Justin it didn't bother me, but now Justin triggered me. Oh god.
Because, like I said, I'm all for a good idea, and maybe back in 1914 or whenever it was, this might have been a good idea.
1918 was a different time in this world, Justin.
But you know what? It isn't now. It's not 1918. We're not in World War I. And we also run electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week anyways. Like, it's going to be daylight soon. You know what? The lights are staying on in this room. And so I feel like, again.
Hey, you do tell me all the time, you're like, my biggest fear, future, this electric grid.
I do.
You do tell me that more than you care to admit,
we like to run the power. By the way, I was right. 1919, President Wilson suffered a severe stroke that left him incapacitated till the end of his presidency.
Okay, things you don't know, man. Like I said,
we don't. And for a while, there was a couple months there where the president, we didn't know if he was running the country. Stop.
What a time.
Stop with your jokes. I can already hear people making jokes.
Too soon, Justin. We can't fall down that rabbit hole. Can't do it.
Tomorrow's a big day. Are the commercials?
Yeah, college basketball starts.
Are the commercials done tomorrow? Do we know that? Like, are the commercials going to be done tomorrow?
They will probably not be done.
Are they going to still?
Yeah, they probably won't be done leaking out of inventory until the end of the week.
Goodness gracious.
Because I'm with you, boss. Absolutely.
But much like in college, it feels like one of those things. Well, that's just what we do. And well, as we learned over the last couple, in college football, we just do whatever we want, and there was nobody there to stop people. We can't have 18 teams in the Big Ten. Yeah, we can. We can do whatever we want. Well, yeah, but we gotta schedule games out 8 years in advance. No, we don't. We can't play a team 2 times in the regular season. We sure can, because we kind of need to right now. So we can change it. Again, I don't know of anyone that is pro changing the clocks. I don't.
It's bad.
I don't know anybody that gets real excited about fall back. I'll tell you what. There's one good thing, and I'm too old for this now. I do remember every year on fall back when I was in my degenerate party days. That Saturday, every once in a while, a bar at 2 a.m. would fall back to 1 a.m, and you would get an extra hour of drinking that Saturday night.
I've done that a time or two, too. Absolutely.
Now, there were some bars that were like, no, not happening. I see your game, kids. Move it. But there are also some bars that were like, yep, clock says 1. We don't have to close until 2.
Oh, yeah. Great memories there.
So that, other than that, and by the way, that's not even a good reason, because you all should have went to bed like I did Saturday night, but we do it anyways. Why? We've always done it. Well, we could just stop and just be done with it. I will say, though, wouldn't it be weird if Oregon just did it? And I know we have some listeners in Southwest Washington. I know that because I get their advertisements on my TV, too. Turn Southwest Washington into Portland. It's like, well, hey, I'm sitting right here. Wouldn't it be weird if, like, you went across the bridge and just, like, Washington was like, no, we're sticking with fallback.
That'd be pretty cool.
And we just go as like, all right, go across the bridge. It is it's 5 a.m. in Washington now.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool. It'd be a logistical absolute nightmare.
Yeah, well, because my in-laws live in Camas.
Yeah.
So
just, hey, we're going to bring the dog by at 6. Wait, you mean 7? No, 6. No, R7. That'd be funny.
They do that, though, between, in Ontario. But in Idaho, or Ontario, Oregon, and Weiser, Idaho, I think you go back and forth with the mountain time.
Because you spent more time on the East Coast than me too. There's got to be the line in Pennsylvania, right? Or is that all?
There's Indiana. I think is the weird one that has some in mountains.
Because I knew there was one state where it's like, yeah, it's kind of half and half.
Indiana's got some in Central and some in East Coast.
That'd be fun to hippity hop on both sides. I'm 2 hours in. That'd be kind of cool.
Complete nightmare. It really does. All right, what's also a nightmare for some teams? The college football slate on Saturday. Some teams are living the dream as the Oregon Ducks, the number 1 team in the country, may have suffered a pretty significant injury. How much is that going to matter? Winners and losers from college football Saturdays next on 620 Rip City Radio. I know it's cliche, and I chuckle, even though every time I say it, I chuckled on Friday a handful of times. But it is true. It's one of those cliches that actually works out. November are the football games people remember. It is. You just think about your favorite team. And obviously there's the great upsets, but your rivalry games are played in November. The college football playoff will be determined probably over the next 3 to 4 weeks here in the month of November. Usually, big time 10-win seasons are made in November. And obviously now we have a college football playoff. The other reason why November are the games that people remember is because when you lose games in November, it can cost you your job. And there was some very big winners in college football. Winners get sprinkles on this particular program. So we start with the number one team in the country. Oregon goes into Michigan. Oregon rolls at Michigan, 38-17. Let me throw out a couple of things. Oregon fans are getting very nitpicky now. They're getting very, very nitpicky. Michigan is not obviously a national championship contender. They are now 5-4 on the season. Nobody has put up 38 points on Michigan, not even Texas. Texas beat Michigan at the Big House in week 2, 31-12. And remember, that was a big blowout because we thought Michigan might be good back then. Washington beat Michigan, put 27 up on them. Illinois won 21-7. Oregon has scored more points on Michigan than any other team in college football this year. So for the Oregon fans out there who are, I don't know, have this anxiety, and I understand it, and I understand because the injuries are starting to pile up as well. But for Oregon fans, they're getting just a little bit of anxiety because if you look at Oregon, the last handful of games, they did not score in the third quarter against Illinois last week. They did not score in the third quarter against Purdue the week before. You go back to UCLA. They were sluggish, did not score in the third quarter, only 6 points in the game. So 3 games for Oregon. Also, just scored 3 points against Michigan State. Outside of Ohio State, and Oregon didn't score against Ohio State in the third. So Oregon's third quarter is kind of becoming a thing. And first off, nitpicky alarm. 2 things can be right at the same time. First thing, let's start with the optimism and the fact that I believe that Oregon is purposely shutting down the engines because they have been up in every single one of those games except Ohio State. In every single one of those games, UCLA, Michigan, Purdue, Illinois, and Michigan, those games were well in hand by halftime. And maybe with the exception of Georgia, Oregon might have the best defense in all of college football. Georgia's defense is still really good. Georgia offense, you got to stop throwing picks. Did Beck have like 3 picks against Florida? Ooh. But Georgia's defense, they're sending people to the NFL left and right. Oregon defense will be sending people to the NFL left and right as well. Oregon has got, if not the best, one of the best defenses in all of college football. You're up by 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns at half. That's me taking the air out of the ball. Let's take the air out of the ball, get a win, survive, advance, move forward. The style points, the beauty contest that was college football for 100 years is no longer important. Not when you play in the Big Ten. You win your next 3 games. Heck, you could win your next 3 games by 1 point apiece. And maybe you lose in a tiebreaker. It doesn't matter. You're going to the playoff. This is not the BCS era. You don't need to put up style points. Now, some people were saying at the end of that game, did Dan Lanning know the point spread? Because Oregon was up 14. They had the ball. I believe it was 2nd and goal. Could have taken a knee. Ran 2 plays, boom, boom. Now, it wasn't a perfect take-a-knee situation. Michigan still had a timeout. And so some people were saying, did Dan Lanning know the spread? Did he punch in that touchdown to cover the spread? No, Big Ten has a point differential tiebreak, and who knows what's going to happen with Ohio State and Indiana, because wouldn't it be kind of nuts, or if Ohio State beats Indiana and Oregon somehow drops a game, you could have 4 teams all with 1 loss in the conference, in Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, and Indiana. Guess what? Point differential matters. So I think that's why Oregon punched in that kind of late, touchdown. Some people that had Michigan and the 14.5 points, probably not very happy about that, but I think that had way more to do with the point differential tiebreaker in the Big Ten, as opposed to Dan Lanning knowing the spread or Dan Lanning trying to send a message. It was a point differential thing. But if you look at Oregon outside of the Ohio State game, they have had every game in hand by halftime, except Oregon State, Boise, and Idaho. But since that Beaver game, UCLA game was done by halftime. Michigan State game was done by halftime. Purdue, Illinois, it was 35-3 at halftime. These games were done by halftime. Why continue to pile it on? So that's one thing that can be true. Oregon's third quarter woes might be more to do with the status of the game as opposed to maybe a program problem. Here's why I see some Oregon fans maybe getting a little bit in their feels about the third quarter stuff. Six third quarter points in the last 6 weeks. Because Dan Lanning says all the time, we want to win the middle 8. Dan Lanning doesn't say, every coach says that. Now, if you're not familiar with what the middle 8 is, it's the last 4 minutes of the second quarter and the first 4 minutes of the third quarter. Every coach in college football, from now looking back to the beginning of when Rutgers faced off against, I can't remember who Rutgers played, in the very first college football game ever played, coaches were probably saying, guys, we got to come out, we got to make a statement in that third quarter. And then the third quarter became the middle 8. If you could score at the end of the first half and get the ball back and score at the beginning of the second half, boy, you can put teams away. Lanning's saying that, not fans, coach. And the fact that they haven't come out and put up points in the third quarter is something to keep an eye on. It's not a worry because, as I said, 2 things can be true at the same time. Those games were well in hand, or other than Ohio State. There was no need to continue to open up the playbook and continue to pile it on in the second half. But the other part of it is true. If you got a coach who's constantly saying, hey, we got to win the middle 8, we got to win the middle 8, and you're not winning the middle 8 at all, that is something to keep an eye on. But as we sit right now, Oregon is 9-0. They put up more points than anybody had all season on Michigan on the road in November when their number 1 receiver goes down third snap of the game. Third snap of the game, Tez Johnson goes down. I am not a doctor. We will not know because Oregon's not going to tell anybody. I'll bet we'll get a day-to-day. He's going to try it. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It is interesting now with the whole injuries thing, and Brenden and I will put our argument aside for this. Some players are just coming out on social media going like, it's been real, fam. Have you
I appreciate them. They're real ones. Okay. They're not, hiding behind a stupid veil of...
It's HIPAA.
HIPAA, yeah.
It's HIPAA, man. Yeah. Come on.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to be honest. It's silly. We want to protect important things like people going to see their doctor on a weekly thing, sure. But athletes, you're under more scrutiny.
I think it's still my Dak Prescott. I think that's HIPAA. I don't know if that's how you use it in the sentence, Dak, but sure.
So accurate.
I think that's HIPAA. So, me speculating, I'm guessing. I'm pure speculative guess because I've said multiple times, I got no sources. Nobody tells me anything. But I've watched enough football, and I've seen enough collarbone injuries. Looked like a collarbone injury to me. The way he fell, the way he grabbed at his shoulder pads, kind of tugging him down, the way that he went to the tent, then went back to get x-rays. Usually if x-rays come back good news, you don't go to street clothes. You know what I mean? Again, not a doctor. I have no information. All I know is usually in football, when you go from the injury tent to the locker room where the x-ray machine is, you get the x-rays done. If those x-rays are clean, you usually don't come back in street clothes and a sling. And Tez put a very cryptic Instagram story up of the broken heart emoji of him laying on the ground, so a lot of people are speculating. If I had to guess, broken collarbone, probably done for the regular season. Now, we hold out hope. Maybe if Oregon wins the Big Ten, you get a first-round bye. You don't play until January 1 in the Rose Bowl. Maybe a chance he comes back. But it is why this is, I think, a different Oregon team than we have ever seen before. There's been great players for Oregon. There's been elite-level players for Oregon. But the depth of this team, I think, is its biggest difference. Ohio State game. Biggest game in Otso Stadium history. Jordan Birch, who is arguably Oregon's best defensive player, he's out. He doesn't play. He suffered an injury, allegedly. Thursday in practice, he wasn't playing. Trayshawn Holden, who, by the way, became Oregon's best receiver against Michigan. Trayshawn Holden, first half, spits on a guy. He gets booted. So you lose a starting receiver. You didn't have a starting defensive player. Two guys, massive. Oregon beat Ohio State that day. Depth on this team. Tez Johnson, who is not only your best receiver this year, but might be one of the statistically best receivers Oregon has ever had. When you look at the receptions, you look at the numbers and everything else. Now, he's not going to break Troy Franklin's single-season record because, well, I don't think he's going to play these next 3 games. But statistically, one of the best receivers Oregon's ever had. He goes down play 3. Oregon's offense didn't skip a beat. They didn't change the offense. The depth of this Oregon team is the difference between this Oregon and I think Oregon in years past. There have been Oregon teams in years past that were good enough to play for and good enough, quite frankly, to win the national title. Problem was one injury, one slip up, didn't have the depth. You had to play perfect. This team loses Tez Johnson. Boom. Offense didn't skip a beat. Gabriel threw for nearly 300 yards. They put up more points on Michigan than any team has put on Michigan all year and put the game away essentially by halftime. It was 28-10 at halftime, and Michigan knew. Michigan knew, like, we ain't moving the football against these guys. So there you go. Maybe more on Oregon coming up in just a bit. I don't know where Dylan Gabriel is right now in terms of the Heisman race. Travis Hunter not playing, I think, may have gained some ground because he was on the 2 major college football shows on Saturday morning. He was on College Game Day, and he was on Big Noon Kickoff. And, boy, Brenden, on Friday night, San Diego State was bound and determined to not let Genty go for like 250 on him. San Diego State against Boise State gave up 56 points. So you might be thinking, well, Genty must have went 31 carries, 149, 2 touchdowns. That's pedestrian for Ashton Genty. San Diego State was like, we are going 9 in the box, and if you want to throw on us all day, that's fine. We are not going to be your Heisman reel this year. I was watching that game on Friday, and I'm like, this is insane. They are down 4 touchdowns. They're still running goal line defense midfield. They're like, yep. Dude's not going to beat us. Who's the coach at San Diego?
Sean Lewis.
Sean Lewis. He was not going to be the team that gave up the 200 and some yards to Genty on Friday.
It might be reserved for Oregon State. We'll see.
maybe get some guys healthy. Maybe the bye week,
You know what they say about it being a marathon, not a sprint?
Yeah.
Might be a limp towards the end of the season.
Just got to get to the finish line,
Might be limping. We'll see, though. 4 more weeks, but could be a long 4 weeks.
All right. Other winners from the weekend. Big win for Ohio State. Because if they don't, the fact that they came out, spotted Penn State 10 points, right? Will Howard throws pick 6. And remember, Will Howard was at the beginning of the year, like, Penn State. And they said I wasn't good enough. I guess we'll find out. Pick 6. Oh! But Ohio State came back. They were able to control the game. Ohio State scored 6 points in the second half. And once again, Penn State and James Franklin lives up to the reputation. Maybe more on James Franklin coming up in a bit, because I think he and some other coaches with some big names and some big fat contracts are in the mix for some hot seats. But Penn State's once again, and Ohio State very much back in the mix, which, boy, oh boy, who would have thunk? Because Ohio State's got Purdue and Northwestern. Purdue is the worst team in the Big Ten. Northwestern is 2-4 in conference. Brenden, the Saturday before Thanksgiving, who had it on their bingo card? Ohio State, Indiana. Maybe for a spot in the Big Ten championship game.
Nobody, and if they told you yes, they're lying.
There's Kurt Cignetti's family would not have said.
Yeah, no way.
But I think that was a huge win for Ohio State, because if they lose that game, not only are they out of the Big Ten race, not only, I think, maybe potentially out of the college football playoff at 10-2, the Ryan Day stuff really heats up if they lose that game. So I thought Ohio State got a huge win over the weekend. Indiana, once again, they spotted Michigan State 10 points, and there was a lot of people going like, okay, didn't I think somebody put Indiana on like upset alert on one of the shows? I forget who it was. Somebody did, and I was like, hey, watch out here. Cute. Upset alert. And then Michigan State drops 10 points at home. Like, oh, is this it? Is midnight happening for the Hoosiers? Is the carriage turning into a... No, that's 47 unanswered.
Well, when Michigan State Twitter is getting into Twitter wars.
It's getting bad.
With Oregon State, who's on a bye week, and saying you can take him back. Ooh. Oh, man. That's there's something that brings me a smile on Monday morning. That's it.
South Carolina got a nice win. We'll get to Texas A&M when we talk about maybe some of the losers of the weekend. But any other team with a big, you feel like Oregon got a nice win. They
big win or big loss. I told you the most passionate team I feel about is Arizona coming in for how bad.
Yeah,
that's something I'm not talking about. As far as like a big win, I don't know. It was kind of weird. Like this week, there weren't necessarily, outside of obviously the go-to is Ohio State. Obviously, outside of that, not really a whole lot of surprises. I should say. I told you that I was a little surprised South Carolina over A&M.
I guess the surprises were some of the close games.
Sure, yeah.
Like Georgia's in a, pardon the pun, dogfight with Florida. And it turns out that wasn't the only fight. Did you see on the internet? Jacksonville PD is not messing around. They call that the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, and there were some bouncers.
Billy Napier has a pulse now. That team is playing a lot better these last couple weeks.
They had a chance.
So go fig.
They had a chance. They were right there. So yeah, Florida 4-4. Like you said, pulse for Napier. He might not go forward.
They owe him a lot of money, so
they do.
We'll see. But that's interesting. I'm like, oh wow, they were not a sacrificial lamb, as I like to say in these matchups sometimes.
Yeah, so. I was surprised at how close that game was, because obviously it's a huge rivalry game. But other than that, Oregon did what they needed to do. There were some, I guess UCLA getting a nice win.
Nebraska might have been fool's gold, y'all.
How are the vibes on football teams in Los Angeles right now? I bet they're very different than they were when we're in LA and we're all joking about help me out.
Deshaun Foster.
Deshaun Foster. And then Lincoln Riley. Okay. So, coaching hot seats, maybe some bubble watch, college football playoff. We go on campus. That's next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, well, there were a handful of college football winners. Oh, boy. There were some losers on Saturday in more ways than one. Back when we started the show, we had a segment called Who Won the Weekend. Never really got traction. You try things in this business. You throw some things up against the wall, and you see what sticks. So when you try some stuff out, and we're like, who won the weekend? And it didn't quite work. But maybe we'll do a little reverse Who Won the Weekend. Who had the worst weekend? Who had the worst weekend? But we'll sugarcoat. Just like you put some cheese on that broccoli, or as Mary Poppins told us, just a spoonful of sugar helps that medicine go down. We're gonna play the cool on-campus music, but it was not a good weekend for some folks. Let's go on campus. All right. Candidates for the worst weekend. Here we go. First up, James Franklin. Once again, very, 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 very good against everybody else in the Big Ten. Once again, I think he's 1-12 against top 5 opponents. And unfortunately, those 12 is Ohio State and Michigan over and over and over again. So James Franklin, he's on the list for who had the worst weekend. Lincoln Riley. People are starting to take a look at Lincoln Riley and Clay Helton and the first year and a half or 2.5 years of Lincoln Riley and the first couple of years of Clay Helton, and they're looking at the numbers and they're going like, what's going on here? So Clay Helton, or not Clay Helton, sorry, Lincoln Riley, did he have the worst weekend? Arizona football in general. They're 3-6 with a guy that's supposed to be, well, they might have the best receiver in the country. Is it McMillan? And then you've got Fafita, who last year was kind of one of those rising stars, and they were like, no, we're staying at Arizona, and we got Brenden coming over. He's a wild. They're 3-6 in a good, not great Big 12. Is that fair? Say good, not great Big 12. Dabo Swinney. Coach Dabo, tough weekend. As Clemson, I believe, now is going to have to win the ACC. And I don't know if they can because SMU's still undefeated in ACC play. So is Miami. Did Clemson play themselves out of the college football playoff with that loss to Tyler Shuck and the Louisville Cardinals? So those are my lists right now for the worst weekend. Brenden, anybody else on that list?
Oh, yeah, you missed the biggest one. Just Pennsylvanians who are fans of Penn State. Because from what I've heard, Justin, not only...
It's the entire state of Pennsylvania.
If you're a fan of Penn State, because not only...
Anything going on with that state this week?
Sorry?
Pennsylvania?
Well, not only was it a tough and frustrating game, one of my good buddies lives in Pennsylvania, and he goes... You guys think you've been peppered with political ads? So, yeah, I heard there were quite a few political ads amidst Penn State's frustrations on Saturday. So I'm just going to go out and say Penn State fans had the worst of it this weekend, Justin.
It was tough. Because I think it was one of those things, and I've done this as an Oregon fan, where you go in on Monday going like, we're not going to win this game. There's too much. And then, by Wednesday, especially a big home game, by Wednesday, you're like, you look at the matchup, and then by Friday, you're there, and, like, you can feel, like, the energy, and it's like, oh. Only to have Lucy pull up the football one more time. Yeah, it's a tough time for Penn State fans. Now, they can still get back in it. Kind of.
Penn State could win out and probably make the playoff.
If they win out, they make the playoff. You're right. They can't. I don't think they have a path to the Big Ten title game, though.
No,
right?
But they don't play anybody tough. They've got a couple more kind of. Excuse me. Unless you count Michigan tough. Or no, they play Michigan still, right? Yeah,
I had it up here.
No, I'm double checking myself. But yes, Penn State, Michigan always. No, it's Ohio State, Michigan.
Ohio State, Michigan is at the end. Let's see. Penn State has got Huskies coming off of a win. Purdue at Minnesota. Don't sleep on the Gophers, by the way.
True. Okay, so they must have already played Michigan.
And then they got Maryland. So let's see.
That's weird.
Right now, they are currently 13-point favorites to beat Washington on Saturday.
I buy that. They'll bounce back.
It's at home. But yeah. Penn State, tough weekend. Because, again, Penn State's not trying to just get to the playoff, right? Penn State and their fan base is like, no, this is Michigan's down. Ohio State just lost. We get them at home. Here it is. Nope. You might make the playoff, but I don't think you're in national title contention. But, yeah. Is Mike Elko on that list? After a week where you were kind of the dude in college football and everybody's like, boy, look at the job that Mike Elko has done. And, boy, they might win the SEC. And you got spanked by South Carolina.
Disappointing, but, I mean.
Not as bad as Lincoln Riley,
No.
I think.
No. You have much more optimism.
Or is Dabo,
Same with Dabo.
Dabo, they played themselves out of the playoff, didn't they?
You're kind of bummed, obviously. But, again, we're talking, the knee-jerk stuff, Justin, USC is going to talk about moving on from Lincoln Riley. At the end of the day, Clemson's not going to move on from Dabo, right? You have to look at it.
Well, yeah.
Texas A&M probably we found a gem in Mike Elko.
They're
right?
just getting started at Texas A&M.
Right? I mean, we all know they courted Dan Lanning for a minute. They talked some names, and Mike Elko was kind of okay, I guess we have to pivot here. And turned out to be kind of a dime in the rough. So, yeah, no, I wouldn't worry too much about those teams. Disappointing, sure, but 10-2 is still going to.
You look at the ACC right now. Miami I do not believe has a game where they face Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, and Syracuse.
Told you, man, Miami, crystal ball.
They're good. They got weapons. Boy, the Cam Ward experience is something because he will, from one series, look like he is the best quarterback to ever play college football. And then 5 minutes later, look like he has never played football a day in his life. I've never seen swings like that from a quarterback. It's incredible. And I'm sure Coug fans are probably like, yeah, we know all about that. But they got Georgia Tech, who's 5-4. They got Wake Forest, who's 4-4. And then they got Syracuse, who's 6-2. And that's at the Carrier Dome. 2 of those 3 on the, but they got a ace up their sleeve though, because I think they could still lose a game and still get in. What's SMU's schedule like? If SMU beats Boston College, Virginia, and Cal, it's SMU versus Miami in the ACC title game, and no Dabo.
I don't know about
Clemson.
I don't know about Virginia, but Boston College and Cal have both shown a pulse this year, so those are in no way gimmies, but they got both those games at home.
Get them in Dallas.
But then again, is that really one of the more raucous atmospheres?
No, it's really
Justin,
not.
No.
But the fact that you get to stay at home and you
don't
have to travel a gajillion miles. All right. Hot seats are heating up. College football playoff is heating up. A lot of stuff heating up around our country as well. We have hour number 2 coming up next, 620 Rip City Radio.
7 a.m. on a Monday. Brenden Sauter with you for Rip City Mornings. Some breaking news as of just a few minutes ago out of New Orleans as the Saints have fired head coach Dennis Allen. A new NFL opening is on the horizon. More on that as it comes this morning. The Portland Trailblazers return to action on their road trip tonight, facing the Pelicans in New Orleans. Go figure. Lots going on in the Big Easy today. Tip off at 6:30 p.m. Pregame at 4 o'clock right here in your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. The Oregon Ducks remain perfect and moved to 9-0 with a 38-17 win over Michigan. And the Seattle Seahawks fell to the Rams 26-20 at Lumen Field yesterday. Coming up on the big show, we'll catch up with Unafraid Show host George Wrighster, talk some Ducks in the third hour, make or miss in hour 2. You got Rip City Mornings.
Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Hopefully you are all having a fantastic Monday. If you are new to the program, hey, thanks for hanging out. If you like what you hear, would you mind telling a friend? We'd appreciate it. And if you are a returning customer, of course, couldn't do it without any of you. We appreciate you being a part of our day, whether it is just a quick 5-minute trip to drop off the kids at school or you are a 3-hour grinder on this particular program. We appreciate each and every one of you. We have got some Make or Miss coming up in approximately 20 minutes. We have got some stuff we saw on the internet coming up in about 45 minutes. College football talk with George Wrighster in the third hour as the Oregon Ducks remain undefeated. They remain the number one team in the nation and apparently have now finally done enough to impress John Wilner down there at the San Jose Mercury News. Have you been aware of this ongoing battle on the internet, Brenden, between John Wilner and the Oregon fan base? Because
he's hated my team for the better part of a year and a half, so it doesn't really surprise me anything that you're going to say.
Is Wilner one of those guys that every team in the Pac-12 in the old Pac-12 feels like he hated all of them?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, again, just, just, nothing can say it better than that. Like, that's it.
And so for the last 2 weeks, not this week, but for the last 2 weeks, when Oregon ascended up to number one in the country, being undefeated with a win over Ohio State, first week, and again, this is the world we live in, but I kind of am here for the pettiness. First week, it was clear Oregon's going to be the number one team in the country, right? They beat Purdue on Friday on a short week, and coming off of a win against Ohio State, it's the best win that anybody's had in the country so far up until that point. And Texas then would go on to lose to Georgia. Georgia, by the way, has lost to Alabama this year. All but two. And obviously it takes about 45 seconds of research to know because the AP poll is public, as it should be. And it took all of about 2 seconds that it was, I think, some guy from Texas A&M and then John Wilner. And a lot of people in the West Coast and in the Oregon fan base scratch their head. It's like, well, wait a minute. This is a guy that knows about West Coast football. This is not some East Coast elitist. This isn't some SEC honk who believes, just because teams got 3 losses doesn't mean that your undefeated team's better, which just means more down here. It's not one of those guys. It's one of our guys from San Jose, home of great America. It's an awesome theme park, by the way. Then another week goes by, and Oregon is at home facing off against number 20 team in the country, Illinois. Oh, Illinois is going to be physical. Illinois is going to come in. They might push Oregon to the brink. What of this 20-point spread? That's way too big. No. 35-3 at halftime. Boom, boom, boom. That one's done. And Oregon fans, because we have nothing else to complain about, and we live in a world where, I'll be honest, I'll speak for myself as an Oregon fan. We're not real comfortable with this not having anything to complain about. Now, let me say, there is zero with Oregon football to complain about right now. You're the best team in the country. You have depth. You have an incredible head coach. You have a favorable schedule. The world is the Oregon Ducks' oyster. But we live in a world where the last I don't know, 20-some years, Oregon fans have been fighting the fight for respect. Well, you got it. Everybody in the country, seemingly, seems to think Oregon is the proper number one team. You haven't played a close game in the 3 games since facing off against Ohio State. 2 of those were on the road in Big Ten country, which a lot of people, including myself, said, watch out for all that travel. Hasn't been a problem. And so you figure, after he beat Illinois, well, all but one. All but one vote. Who could it be? Wilner, again, put Georgia there at number 1, which, again, as a college football fan, I'm like, I could see that. Well, finally, Georgia was in a bit of a dogfight, pun intended, with Florida. Oregon went, beat the dog out of Michigan, scored more points on Michigan than anybody had scored on them all year. Brenden, we've done it. We've done it. We flipped Wilner. We got him. We got him to finally flip. Between the battle against Wilner online and the third quarter scoring thing, Oregon fans have such champagne problems right now. I say that as one, but like the champagne problems that Oregon fans have right now is common because we're not used to this. I've said it before. Oregon is new money. Michigan, Ohio State, USC, more on them in a moment. That's old money, right? They're used to, when they're good, everybody just sitting there, kissing their feet, telling them how great they are. It's why Nick Saban warned of rat poison, because when Alabama is good, everyone in the country just loves to fawn over. Alabama is so good. Georgia, everybody's fawning over Oregon right now. You are Alabama. You are Georgia. Right now, in this moment, you are them. But for decades upon decades, all of us Oregon fans were like, East Coast bias, stupid BCS, nobody believes. Everybody believes in you now. And go look at every ballot in the AP poll. They got Oregon number 1. It's unanimous. It's your unanimous number 1 team in the country. Go look at every projection for the college football playoff. Every one of them has Oregon winning the Big Ten and becoming the number 1 seed. Dog caught the car. And I'll be honest, Oregon fans, we don't know what to complain about. Finally flipped Wilner. Maybe we'll stick with the third quarter scoring for a minute. Who knows? But it is an interesting time here in the Oregon football world, as they are good, they are tough, they are cocky, but not overconfident. They are deep. It's 3 games left in the regular season and a lot of games left if you want to hoist that big trophy. But even including the 2014 season, which I believe had, between 2014 and 2010, those were the 2 best shots that Oregon ever had at winning a national title. I love the 2001 team, and I'll say this before we bring George Wrighster on. I don't know if that team wanted any part of that Miami team. I mean, they wanted it, but I don't know how that one would have ended. But Oregon proved themselves against Auburn, fell just short by 3 points at the end of that ball game. Almost went to overtime. Felt like they proved themselves in 2014 against Florida State, only to be shown once again, not quite there yet. Oregon has the best chance to win the national title than they've ever had, including 2012 and including 2014 when they actually played for it. Other teams that are not playing for national championships, is the seat getting hot for Lincoln Riley down in Los Angeles? We've seen the rumblings, right? There is an order to coaches' hot seats being turned up. And I would say if there are 5 phases, phase 5 being coaches fired on tarmac, which happened at USC. I think SC's probably sitting at about phase 3. Phase one is the crazies on the internet start grumbling. That's phase one. Brenden runs the message board. He knows all too well about that world. That's how it starts. Message board fodder start happening. Phase two in coaching a hot seat, people start talking about recruiting. I don't know if you noticed, but about a month ago, there was an article about Lincoln Riley, and he's abandoned Los Angeles, and he hasn't met with high school coaches, and there's growing resentment between high school football players in Southern California and Lincoln Riley. He closed down practice, shut it down, stopped opening it up. That's phase. Phase three is when famous alumni start questioning you. And I don't know if you saw the internet, but Matt Leiner's throwing some stuff out there. I know he's not really famous, but he still works in the media. Max Brown, former quarterback, he's throwing some. When your famous alumni start throwing some stuff out, that, and then next step, that's when boosters start coming after you. Fifth step is fired. Next step is boosters. Right now, I think USC is currently in the former player going like, this isn't what we signed up for when we went and stole Oklahoma. We thought we were winning. Now, they did win a Heisman Trophy, and they did win 10 games once. But since that point in time, USC has been mediocre. I don't think there's any way, shape, or form, Brenden, that they fire Lincoln Riley after this year. I don't think that's going to happen. But boy, if they don't close, if they have a stupid loss somewhere between now and then, when do they play Notre Dame? Don't they play Notre Dame either last game or second to last game of the season? Because if they lose big to Notre Dame, Lincoln Riley could be in trouble. It's a bigger rivalry game for USC fans than the UCLA game. Don't tell UCLA fans that, but it's true. I don't know if he gets fired this year, but if they get their doors blown off by Notre Dame, that is going to be one cooking hot seat in college football. I don't know if there's a coach on a hotter seat. Do you think him or James Franklin on more of a hot seat?
James Franklin.
You think Franklin more of a hot seat? Ooh.
Lincoln Riley's been to the playoff multiple times, so
that is true. But I think the locals are getting a little restless down in Southern California. It's gonna be fun to watch. Glad you went to the Big Ten, blew up the Pac-12 for that, USC. Glad you did it. All right, coming up, we have got Make or Miss. That's next on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, 1 hour from now, we're going to talk to George Wrighster, former Oregon tight end, current host of the Unafraid Show, also contributor to Mad Dog Radio on Sirius XM. So excited to talk to George Wrighster in the third hour of the big show. In about 25 minutes, we have got some stuff we saw on the internet as Ohio State getting the win against Penn State. It was not the only thing on the internet that happened from Happy Valley as outside of the stadium with a very prominent podcaster, former football player, wasn't so happy in Happy Valley. So we'll talk about that and obviously a ton more college football stuff to dive into as well. Right now, though, let's get to Make or Miss.
Well, you know what they say, Justin, about people who plan and have things go according to plan. I had a make or miss already written. Sure would have thought it was Antonio Pierce who got the old hook and crook before Dennis Allen.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, Dennis Allen fired this morning. So that make or miss, unfortunately. No more Dennis Allen, Antonio Pierce on the hot seat watch. It'd be just Antonio Pierce. And, Dennis Allen, second time in his career, handed a pink slip.
Was this his fault? Because
you can't follow Peyton. It's like something we're gonna run.
Following Sean Payton and I don't know how much of the personnel, but like the Derek Carr things,
they've got big problems.
Working.
They've got big problems. They've got locker room problems. They've got cap problems.
That's what
I just read something that said the Saints are probably going to be the most undesirable job in the NFL.
Oh, that's okay.
And it won't be close because
make or miss.
They are
Saints are the worst job in the NFL.
I'd say it's a make. I mean,
is it worse than the Jets?
Yeah, for the cap situation alone. I mean, like, they are something like, I think Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers set the record last year when Harbaugh came in and was like, they're like, we got to clean up about $70 million in cap stuff. They cut everybody, figured it out, and Saints are about the same. I think it's like $75 million over the cap. You're probably going to have to cut Derek Carr. You're probably going to have to, you might have to make some real radical decisions there in New Orleans. And it's so crazy because they started the year 2-0.
And like big 2-0 too.
Like, they scored like 80 points over 2 games.
Yeah, it's like, look out for the Saints. They're
so
fired.
If I were them, I would go, I know it's crazy. Follow the Chargers plan. I think you go get
Sharon Moore?
The Chargers didn't hire Sharon Moore.
No, the Michigan coach?
But they didn't.
That's what I'm saying. They hired the Michigan coach. I was making a joke. It did not land.
Well, no, obviously.
All right, bad joke for Justin.
He's not good. But, you go find the best college coach who wants to make the jump, and I guarantee you there's one, Justin.
There is one.
Now, who's the best who would? Jed Fish?
Okay, I would say Jed Fish.
For his NFL background.
Bill O'Brien.
Ooh,
at Boston College.
That's sneaky good. After 1 year, would he bit?
Well, Jed Fish 1 year at Washington.
You're right. Yeah.
Now, Jed Fish changes a lot when you look at his career. I don't think he's been anywhere more than 2 years. I think 2 or 3 years is like
2 or 3 every year.
Is it for Jed Fish?
No, wait. So like Kirby Smart's never leaving Georgia. Miami Cristobal. Mario Cristobal is never leaving Miami.
No.
Could you ever pull Sark to the pros?
I think he's okay.
That's intriguing. It's not an immediate no for me.
One of the knocks on Texas when Mac Brown was there was that players were treated so well in Texas that they would get to the NFL and they would be kind of soft.
Okay.
Now, when you are winning in Texas as the head coach, I think life is as good as good gets. And when you are not winning, well, as bad gets. I think Sark is like, I'm on a gravy train with biscuit wheels. I got Arch Manning coming up for the next 2 years. I like where your head's at, but I don't know if that's the guy. Fish.
I'm just like you. Again, Franklin might be fired. I could see.
Also, I don't see James Franklin as an NFL guy.
I could see Josh Heupel making that jump at one point.
Josh Heupel's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. think Signetti's a little too old to ever make that leap, not to be ageist.
Are you ready for this? You want to get crazy? Are we ready to get crazy, Brenden? Deion and Shedeur, package deal.
To New Orleans?
Package deal. Deion and Shedeur to New Orleans. They need a quarterback.
They do.
They're going to have to release Derek Carr.
Yeah, they're going to be.
Shedeur's. I cannot be trusted for my evaluation for quarterbacks. One, for my horrendous track record, and two, I've been kind of a hater. But a lot of people believe that Shedeur Sanders might be the number one pick in the NFL draft.
So they have a chance.
If it's New Orleans, do you go?
As it stands,
do you get Deion and Shedeur?
As it stands right now, the only two teams that have a worse record than you since the Carolina Panthers beat you, embarrassingly enough.
Mm-hmm.
New England Patriots are not going to take a quarterback. They're going to be settled in on Drake May for at least a year. And the Jacksonville Jaguars will not take a quarterback. So
the Saints are going to be picking
probably
the first quarterback.
Probably.
If not number one, they'll be. If Carolina ends up with the worst record, even with Bryce Young, do they pick quarterback?
They might.
I think so.
That's more up in the air, I think.
Back to the original question. Is Carolina a better job than New Orleans?
No, because you're crazy David Tepper. I'd rather have Gail Benson and the Benson Family Trust than crazy David Tepper who thinks he knows football.
But could you imagine if the Saints are just like, we need to make a splash. Let's
get wet.
Let's go get Deion. Deion's will coach his son. I mean, I don't know if that's what Deion wants to do. I don't know if ultimately he wants to be an NFL head coach, but
as it stands,
it would make sense. But you want to talk about coach at college that would probably make the leap? I wouldn't put anything past Deion Sanders.
So,
in terms of getting his kid to the next level.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because you knew him for a while. You're telling me, and this is purely just hypothetical, because they have three quarterbacks projected top 10 right now. They got Shedeur.
Boom.
Can't forget Cam Ward.
Especially
being so close to New Orleans, Miami, they're seeing a lot of Cam Ward highlights down in NOLA right now.
And it's funny because when you watch Cam Ward highlights, you go like, this is the greatest quarterback I've ever seen in my entire life.
Then you watch him for a game.
And then you watch Cam Ward for a game and you go like, did he forget how to play football for 2 series? Like, he throws some passes that are just like, anyways.
And then Quinn Ewers. So those are the three guys and then it's kind of a drop-off from there. So unlike this last year where there were like 5 guys, there's like 3 that I think can be franchise game changers. And again,
is Carson Beck in there?
Not.
There's not a lot of people very high on him, I guess, huh?
Like Milroe doesn't go until the late 20s. And Beck's projects second round. So
yeah.
It's that bit more of a have and have nots, but all those teams that picked quarterbacks last year are not going to give up.
4 days ago, I would have been like, how is Beck not in there? And then I watched him throw 3 picks against Florida, and I was like,
So my question to you, Justin, is you're sure never, like I know and it's probably not this year either, but everything you know about Mario, you don't think he would ever be tempted to go to the pros?
I think his whole life he wanted to be the Miami Hurricane head coach, and the fact that he's got the Canes back to being the U. Like, they're back now.
Okay, so more likely,
Michael Irvin's on the sideline. They're giving pump-up speeches. I think Ed Reed was there. Like, they're back to being the U again. They've got a legit chance to win not a legit. They'll probably win the ACC. And they got a legit chance to make some noise in the college football playoff.
Is Ed Reed doing better now? After his whole flaming out, being the the coach of I forget what school it was, yelling about the terrible quality of facilities, and then it's like, oh yeah, you got fired the next day.
Yeah, he got fired. I think he's doing okay. He's a NFL Hall of Famer and one of, not the best, but
because he basically tried to follow.
He's one of the best safeties of all time. He's not the best, but he's one of.
Yeah, no, he basically tried to follow the Deion route. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go get hired in an HBCU. I'm gonna be their coach. I'm gonna be rah-rah, and then he got there. He's like, oh. This is bad.
Whereas,
remember he was on the golf cart driving around taking the video, like, look at our facilities. This is terrible. I'll never forget that about old Red Reed.
I've had to come around because I was a hater. Deion had Shedeur and Travis Hunter, and in the SWAC, like,
clearly,
of course, those guys are going to win.
As freshmen, though, I'll say that.
But still, like, you look at what Travis Hunter is doing in major Power 4 college football. That dude played in the SWAC, which a fine football conference, but They're not putting a lot of guys in the NFL, and it's like you had that guy with Shedeur throwing it to him. Like,
And
I don't know how they didn't score like 90 points a game.
And speaking of the just overall disappointments, Justin, here's the craziest part of this mock draft. Those quarterbacks don't go in this until 4 and 5. Projected top 3 pick is the kid out of Arizona. How bad?
The receiver?
Yeah.
Is it McMillan?
Yeah. T-Trill McMillan. I finally figured out how to say it. But how bad are we going to look back? Like, I mean, you think about it. Like, if they have a top 5 pick and they win 4 or 5 games, I know Arizona's not going to be a run anybody out of town being a basketball school and all, but I told you earlier.
It's year one. You lost your head coach. You lost a lot of roster turnover.
I actually looked at, so it wasn't as much as you thought.
Really?
It was a few, but not as much. A couple guys here and there, but McMillan and Fafita, they kind of got the gang to stay, man. Like, they had some guys go pro, obviously, from a really good 10-win team last year.
Also, do you think Jed Fish kind of saw what was coming? He was like, I got to get out of here.
Or does Jed Fish have buyer's remorse?
I don't think so. I think he's good.
Or do you think he's going to bounce on to his next job?
Because here's the thing. Washington lost so much.
They did.
So much.
They got.
And they have, you take away, and I know this because I live with a Husky fan, you take away that loss against Rutgers, right? Which they missed 3 field goals, 2 of them incredibly makeable. Yeah, they got blown out in 2 of their games. They had no business winning. But you take away that Rutgers loss, and they just beat USC. Like, they're good. They're not national championship good, but they're good. And they're going to be good next year. Like, they got, I think, Damon Williams, the kid's name. They got a dynamic freshman. I don't know why they don't play him more, to be perfectly honest. I think it's because Will Rogers came in with a deal in place, and kind of the DJU thing with Aiden Childs is what it kind of feels like is going on at Washington. But they've got a dynamic young quarterback who's going to be good next. Like, I don't think Jed Fish has any buyer's remorse. I think Washington's going to be just fine.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Well,
which
again,
frightens me.
I
wish they were terrible, but they're not.
I don't know. He is such a hippity hop. He's not all in on Washington, just like he was all in at Arizona.
The Florida job should scare the daylights out of Washington fans. Because I think if Florida opens up, I think Jed Fish is gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting because he's been all over the place. You know, he's a New Jerseyite. But
did he play at Florida?
And went to Florida. Yeah, so it's like he is an East Coast guy at the core. But he's been literally everywhere.
He never sticks around.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking 2 years at Arizona. Before that, a year at New England, a year with the Rams, or 2 years with the Rams, a year with UCLA, 2 years with Michigan, 2 years with the Jags.
He's not a 2-year player.
Yeah, like he is, dude. Now, granted, I'll say this, Justin. He's making $8 million a year. You've kind of been able to pick where you want. You've kind of probably been able to pick your jobs for the better part of 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm such a routine guy. I'd be like that guy. It's just like once I found a place that I liked,
I'd
probably never leave. Like,
would never leave.
Like, now again, I'm not saying out here saying, again, Brenden here, like, again, maybe Corvallis wasn't what Jonathan Smith wanted. And I think Beaver fans have a hard time believing that. I have a hard time believing that because he said it was. But I'm just saying, for me, if you ask Brenden if
the conference thing never happened, I think Jonathan Smith is still in Corvallis.
But see,
I truly believe that.
But then a snake is lying in the grass, and you don't know that you have a turncoat trader who's taking salary. So, it's like all the Michigan State fans, Justin, who were saying, to Beaver fans all day, Saturday night into Sunday, yeah, y'all can have him back. No, you guys can keep that grass on both sides.
I said this in September. Jonathan Smith is kind of weird. He does not have the head coaching charisma. He doesn't have the moxie as like Dan Lanning's got it. Say what you will about Dabo, he's got it. Like Dabo's got that drip. As like Mike Gundy, he's got like those coaches. Kalen DeBoer's got it. Like you just see these coaches, they come out and they command the room and there's a reason why they're all successful. Jonathan Smith is an incredibly smart coach. He does not have that moxie, but he was able to get away with kind of being a bit of a weirdo Because he was Corvallis' guy. He fit in culturally there. There is 4 years of memories of him wearing, those white sleeves with the black jerseys and winning the Fiesta Bowl. Michigan State doesn't have any of that. Now we lose and you give up 47 straight and you're Well,
and the crazy thing is,
and it's just culturally he's a bad fit there.
Like Justin and I called it. We said you have no safety net anymore.
No.
If you say it was Jonathan Smith who got his doors blown off by Cal this last week. Trent Bray's in the first year, still the extended honeymoon phase, and it's frustrating. But say it was Jonathan Smith in year 4. Yeah, you'd be frustrated. There'd be some alarm bells, but you'd go, well, whatever. It took us to 10 wins last year and, all these things. And, an alumnus protected in the community, all this, savior. Like you said, who's protecting you at Michigan State?
Well, and think about year 1 in Corvallis, they're 2-10.
It was
right?
bad.
And they got their teeth kicked in a lot of those games.
77-31 to Ohio State. That was nice.
Yeah. Well, guess what? He's 4-5 right now.
Well, that's what I said. Do they make a bowl game?
They're not bad, but because they got their doors blown off by Indiana, Michigan State fans are now it's the internets.
And you see, and Childs got hurt.
They're starting to turn though.
So Childs, I think I don't want to. I heard it was a risk, could be long term, but I look at their schedule, Justin. I would be surprised if they beat Illinois. I know Illinois has been reeling since Oregon, but that's a prime get-right game for the Illini. They'll beat Purdue. Purdue is the worst team in football.
Stinks, yeah.
I don't know about Rutgers. That Rutgers game, I think, is going to determine whether or not they go to bowl game.
I know.
I'm like, oh, my gosh. And what I wouldn't give, please, for the college football world that is listening, let the Oregon State Beavers win their next 2 games. Let Jonathan Smith beat Purdue. Put these 2 teams that are 6-6 in a bowl game against each other, Justin. That is my last wish and desire. That is my Christmas wish. 6-6 Michigan State versus 6-6 Oregon State. My goodness. The hate, the vitriol. I would be here for it all.
Could it even be possible, though?
Sorry?
Could it even, the bowl matchups? Could it even?
Yeah, because Oregon State.
If any bowl team, well, I guess, are those even a thing anymore? Because remember, you used to have conference bowl tie-ins. The Big Ten's got 18 teams.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly.
I don't know how those old bowl. If a bowl team was, industrious enough, they would definitely do that. Because people would that would draw. There's drama there. Oh, that'd be funny.
Let's see. I'm just curious. Last year. Okay, yeah. So it is typically again, in this instance, Justin, as you know, when teams go 6-6, they're at-larges, right? So Oregon State right now, even if they went 6-6, they'd get thrown to one of the ESPN bowls, right? Most likely the Independence Bowl. And like you said, Michigan State went 6-6. They wouldn't get any of the Big Ten bowls. Mm-hmm. So that would be so much fun.
Could it be 6-6
so awesome.
Michigan State and Aiden Childs and Jonathan Smith against Trent Bray and Oregon State in Shreveport, Louisiana.
I said I wouldn't
go. In the
go.
Independence Bowl.
I think I'd have to go, Justin, just to be in that post-game press conferences. Oh, the bowl game, pre-game. My goodness. God, again, a lot has to happen, but holy cow. I would... Justin, I've told you before, there are things in life I would just put on the credit card and deal with it later. That might be one of them. To be able to sit there as those coaches are side by side on the podium.
You have to do it. I guess you don't have. I don't know how it would work out business wise, but it would be. It would get. I'd watch that game, and I would have no interest in watching 2 6-6 teams play a week before Christmas. But I would watch that game. I'll tell you right now.
So that's Brendan's gift, and to be perfectly honest, I think Michigan State would probably win too. So again, not a whole lot of confidence in my Beavs these days, but we got to close it out. But nevertheless, Justin, we're kind of up against it. Maybe thought we'd have time for one more, but we'll go ahead and put a wrap on Make or Miss.
All right, we got stuff we saw on the internet. Jason Kelsey had an interesting day on Saturday.
Don't mess with the lineman?
We're going to... Thumbs up, thumbs down? Too far? Just far enough? Stuff we saw on the internet, including Jason Kelsey next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, let's wrap up hour number 2. It's a segment we call Stuff We Saw on the Internet. And Saturday, 2 things that did not involve college football or politics took over my my algorithm. And I quickly eliminated all the political stuff and focused a ton on the college football stuff. But 2 things took over Saturday's college football slate. One of which is Jacksonville PD is just apparently beating the hell out of people in the stands at the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Multiple. Now, again, I'm not going to make a judgment here or there. This is why I'm assuming they have body cam footage. And it didn't look good, but also I've been in. It's the one thing. I go to games. I've been to games, obviously, as a home team fan, and I've been to Husky Stadium. I've been to Wrighster Stadium. I've been to games. I've been to now Lumen, then CenturyLink as a Steeler fan. Never had a problem going to away games as an away game fan. I will say, though, as somebody who likes going to games, there is one thing that scares the daylights out of me, and that is fights in the stands, because you're trapped. You're in there. And obviously I'm a husband. I go to games with my wife. I think about that all the time, but I saw what was going on in Jacksonville, and let's just say there's gonna be a lot of lawyers. There'll be a lot of lawyers involved. Don't know what happened. I'm not going to make a judgment one end or the other. All I know is that Jacksonville PD ain't messing around. Some people said one guy was trying to grab the police officer's utility belt, which obviously includes a weapon, and that's a no-no. You don't put hands. Some people say cop went too far. I don't know. All I know is I saw at least 3 dudes just getting the you-know-what beat out of them. That freaks me out. It just going to games, and because I see these fights all the time, these NFL games mostly, but this one obviously at a college game, I see these fights come up on my algorithm. I'm like, couldn't even imagine if I was in the middle of that. So I saw that, but I think outside of Penn State going down to Ohio State and Oregon beating Michigan and the upset in South Carolina, probably the biggest story on Saturday was Jason Kelce. So Jason Kelce was on College Game Day on Saturday, and he was there for a very good cause. He was there to do the Pat McAfee field goal kick thing, and he teamed up with the shoe company, and they're trying to raise money for hurricane relief, because obviously there's, by the way, I have friends who have family in Western North Carolina, still don't have running water. Still going on over there, so trying to raise money for hurricane relief, and it's an incredible thing. And so Jason Kelce was kind of doing what his brand is now, which is, I'm just kind of an ex-lineman, tailgating, beer-drinking bro, hanging out, tried to kick a field goal with McAfee, did my show, or did my thing on College Game Day, and I'm going to go watch the biggest college football game in the land. And as he is walking, as one of his stature would, a lot of people doing the camera phone thing. And one guy, again, don't understand why, says, "Hey, Kelce, your brother's a very bad word for dating Taylor Swift." Kelce then turns around, finds the guy, grabs the phone, smashes the phone. I would say the internet was split 90-10. Good for Jason Kelce. Because as someone who spends far too much time on the internet, I should be spending less time on it, far too much time on the internet. There seems to be an abundance of young men, I will say, and I'm a dude, so there seems to be an abundance of young men who walking around with their phones out with no idea of real-world consequences. As I was telling Brenden during the break, there is a whole generation of kids who didn't get punched in the face. I'm not promoting violence. I don't think violence is the way to solve problems. But As someone who ran his mouth as a kid and got punched in the face, you learn, maybe you don't run your mouth all the time. So kid's phone got smashed. Problem with Jason Kelce is he then dropped the same very bad word back to said kid in the heat of the moment. Everything was captured on film, and I'm assuming kid's going to get a check. Don't you think?
Yeah. So
kid's probably going to get a check.
I'm looking into the legality of it, and it is so where did this happen?
This was outside of Beaver Stadium. Jason Kelce was going from game day to the game.
So Pennsylvania, I'm like, hard to know what the it's a pretty intense political climate right now. Just going to throw that out there. It's interesting because, again, this will all come down to whether or not this kid, wants to sue. Because at minimum, new phone, and Justin, at minimum, you grab, I've looked it up now. You grab somebody's phone and destroy it. It is destruction of personal property. Period.
Well, phones are expensive.
Well, that's
true.
They
are. Phones are could you imagine, because what's a new iPhone? I always roll it into my phone bill. I don't know exactly, but it's what, $1,000?
Yeah, give or take 1,015, depending on the model you get. And
could you imagine you just took somebody $1,000 thing and broke it?
Right. So and then, it could also be destruction of property, vandalism, possibly assault. If he's like, he grabbed my finger when he, you know what I mean? So Jason Kelce, I don't mind him doing this. I probably would have done it too, but it's just the headache now that your agent, Jason.
So there's two parts of this, right? There's the first part, which I am kind of on team Jason Kelce.
Me too.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Or mess around,
bleep around and find out. Yeah, both things are appropriate in this situation.
I saw that so much yesterday.
It was you play stupid games and you win stupid prizes. You just went and challenged
the
family member of a former offensive lineman
who was instrumental in the tush push. So now, just gonna say how big he is.
Then the other part of it is, though, Jason Kelce in the last 2 years is a far bigger celebrity than he was 2 years ago. You and I knew who Jason Kelce was. I don't know if your mom did.
No.
But she does now.
It's true.
You know what I mean?
Probably.
I don't know if my mom did, but I bet she does now. His brother's dating Taylor Swift, the biggest star on the planet. He has a podcast that is massively popular. He's on ESPN. His profile is so much higher. So then there's the other side of it is, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. But Jason Kelce, you're not the anonymous beer-drinking center for the Eagles anymore. You're a worldwide celebrity.
Your brother's dating the
You got to get somebody else to hang out with you to take care of that. But
now that being said, I'd love to know where this fan's at right now. Again, I'd love to see this fan be like, really, dude? And with the benefit of hindsight, and I get it, we're all 18 to 22 once, Justin, but you gonna say that again to a 6'4", 300-pound?
It was the stupidest thing ever.
You're just you are a fool. I'm glad your team was crushed.
Sadly,
really, but,
in our world, though, he is gonna get a check. He's gonna get a check. And he's going to sign an NDA, and it's all going to go away. But he's going to get a check.
Better or worse than when Nurkic slammed the phone out of the fan's hand?
This was better because I felt like it was justified. Nurk was just being...
That's the last time I remember a phone being smashed.
A jerk. All right. Coming up next, I want to talk about this Joel Embiid thing. Joel Embiid, plus we got more college football with George Wrighster. We got an RCM mailbag. Jam-packed third hour next, 620 Rip City Radio.
8 a.m. on a Monday. Brenden Slaughter with you for Rip City Mornings. The Saints have fired head coach Dennis Allen after a 2-7 start to the campaign in his third season. So we have an NFL opening on deck. The Portland Trailblazers return to action on their road trip tonight, facing, guess who? Same ownership group, different team. The New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans tonight. Tip off at 6:30 p.m., pregame at 4 p.m. right
How many
here.
times are they going to play the Pelicans? How many times are they going to play the Pelicans
I
in
know.
like the first month of the season?
The
third game against the Pelicans.
Get the series out of the way, Justin. The Oregon Ducks remained perfect and moved to 9-0 with a 38-17 win over Michigan. And tough times for the Seattle Seahawks, falling to the Rams 26-20 in overtime at Lumen Field. Coming up here in about 20 minutes, we're going to catch up with George Wrighster from the Unafraid Show, talk some Ducks, college football, much more.
Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Hopefully you are all having a fantastic Monday. Changed all the clocks in your house? Figure out how to change the microwave clock? Microwave clock is a little tricky. Still have I did this probably 6 months ago when we sprung forward, and I was called soft, I think, is what some people on the internet called me. And I know it's all in good fun because you all who listen to the program, you're all in on the joke, right? We're all just here to have a good time. And if you want to throw a couple of jabs my way, I'm perfectly fine with that. But for the life of me, I just can never figure out how to change the clock in my truck. I don't have an old truck, but it's not new. There's no remote start like high on the hog Brenden over here. Does your car change automatically or?
Oh, of course.
Of course it does.
Of course.
I was driving today and I'm like, that's right, I got to figure this out. And I got like 4 different buttons I got to push. It's a whole thing. Anyways, but the microwave one's a little bit tricky. So on my microwave, I go clock set, and it goes 12-hour or 24-hour. Like, okay, now, first off, tip of the cap to anyone who's ever served this great country and is our armed forces. Other than them, anybody else use a 24-hour clock?
So, yes.
Like anybody, like, do you?
Yes.
You know people use a 24-hour clock in the microwave?
Well, okay, not on
because like on my microwave, it's like 12-hour or 24-hour. It's like, I'm not saying 1400 on the microwave.
Yeah, I don't know about the microwave and specifically, Justin, but like again, beyond just the military, there are people like my sister who's a flight attendant who live their life with military time.
They are on military. Do you think she has it on her microwave?
I don't know.
You think she gets like?
I haven't paid enough close attention at the house.
It'd be 8:03 right now, but at like 2:00, does it say like 1400?
But it bothers me like when I'm out with her and like she has her phone and like it clicks and it goes like 2100. I'm like, what time is it? Like her phone is
21:30.
Her phone is on military time, and it's.
I just find it funny that my microwave has that option. It's first option too. Clock set, 24-hour or 12 hours. It's like 12-hour, like everybody does. You can't just hit clock set, hit boop, 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 and then go. No. Clock set, 24-hour. Anyways, I do this every couple of months when we change the clocks. It drives me nuts. But hopefully everybody got their clocks taken care of. The hard ones, I got a very nice, and it was a gift from my in-laws, housewarming gift. Got a very big clock, and it looks cool. Had to change the battery and change the time on the big clock. Had to take it off the wall. It's not easy. Got that done, and hopefully you are all having a fantastic Monday. Obviously, a lot of college football to talk about. And in approximately 15 minutes, George Wrighster, former Oregon tight end, current host of the Unafraid Show, is going to be joining us. Excited to talk to George, not only about the Oregon Ducks as the number 1 team in the country, but also where he's at on the college football playoff, bubble teams. There is, I think, a legit conversation right now. Who's the number 2 team in the country? Now, it doesn't have as much oomph or weight as it used to, right? Back in the day, the number 2 team in the country was a massively important argument. Even a year ago, because the number 2 team in the country, you would have not a home field advantage in the college football playoff, but you would get somewhat of an advantage in the playoff. But then back in the BCS days, number 2, you had to get it. Is it Ohio State? Is it Georgia? Is it Tennessee? Like, who? I think Oregon's a clear number 1. Call me a homer if you want, but they're 9-0. They beat Ohio State. They haven't been close in any other game since September. They're good at every level, quarterback, line, defense, everything. They're the total package. Doesn't mean that's guaranteeing anything, but right now they're the best team in the country. Who's the second best team in the country? I think it's Ohio State. I mean, if it comes down to Ohio State and Georgia, Ohio State losing by 1 at Autzen Stadium with almost a tick on the clock to give them a shot at a field goal versus, I mean, Georgia came back and made a game of it, but that first half against Alabama, it was not. And that's the nitpicky stuff we got to do to the number 2 team in the country. And Tennessee in the mix there as well. Tennessee beat Alabama. Georgia couldn't do that. And Texas is still out there. Only losses to Georgia. Like,
as much as it pains me to say, and it does pain me to say, it's Oregon and the Organites this year.
They're number 1. But, okay, does Miami have a case for number 2 team in the country?
Well, like right now, I don't mean this lightly. Everything that I've seen, everyone else is playing for second place. Like if I could put money on a team to win a championship, it's probably Oregon. So, no, to answer your question, I don't think anybody is going to. I mean, it's like, you think about it like they already beat Ohio State. Maybe it's tough to beat a team twice. Maybe if they match.
Just go back on neutral and
yeah. I mean that could happen, but like I'm not really. If I'm Oregon, I'm not really worried about half the teams, like from like 5 to 12. I don't know. That's just my
matchups are going to be interesting. So let's say Oregon wins their next 3 games, which I believe they're going to, like, they're 24-point favorites right now against Maryland. They'll be a 2-touchdown favorite against Wisconsin, and then you got Washington at home in the finale, and they win those games. And they go and they win the Big Ten championship. They're the number 1 seed. It's going to be interesting because the matchup you get is the 8-9 game, which I believe right now I saw on ESPN is Boise and Penn State, I think. That'd be an interesting 8-9 matchup. But college football playoff poll is going to be coming out tomorrow. Oregon's going to be the number 1 team on said poll. And obviously, rankings are not seedings. That's a very different thing. And obviously, we got a whole month to figure that out. Who do you think is going to be ranked number 2? I think it's Ohio State. But I think Tennessee, Georgia, and Texas could all make a claim.
Yeah, no, it's Ohio State after beating Penn State. I'm pretty
Texas doesn't have a signature win. Georgia does, but I don't know. It's fascinating stuff. So, going to talk to George coming up in about 10 minutes. Real quick, I do want to talk about Joel Embiid. So, Joel Embiid obviously has faced a lot of criticism with the load management stuff. There's a lot of people in Philadelphia very unhappy with Embiid because the Sixers are, I don't think, doing a very good job of managing what is going on with his left knee and the fact that he was fine in the Olympics, but then apparently he can't play for the Sixers early. And it's been a whole thing. We've talked about it a ton with both Sean Highkin and with Devon Pouncey. It's been a whole thing. Well, Philadelphia, the natives, the locals, they're getting a little frustrated. They're like, we're supposed to have a team with Embiid and George. Neither one of those dudes are playing. What's going on? And it's been a thing with Joel Embiid, and a common criticism is he's a little bit soft. I'm not saying it. I'm saying it's been a common criticism. So, local columnist, I want to get this guy's name right, from Philadelphia. His name's Marcus Hayes. Marcus Hayes from the Philadelphia Inquirer wrote another column about Joel Embiid not showing up, and is he doing a disservice to the fans that ultimately paid their money? Now, this is the part where it gets contentious. Marcus Hayes writes, Joel Embiid constantly points to the birth of his son, Arthur, as the major inflection point in his basketball career. He often says that he wants to be great, to leave a legacy for the boy named after his little brother who tragically died in an automobile accident when Embiid was in his first year as a 76er. Well, in order to be great at your job, you first have to show up for work. Whew. No doubt, deceased brother and child being thrown into a column talking about him being lazy and about talking about him being lazy, and he took offense to that. Met up with Marcus Hayes, and apparently there was a shove and an altercation. Not surprisingly, the 76er security tried to get all the other reporters, said, hey, nobody report about this, and they were like, fat chance, we just saw Joel Embiid. I'm so torn on this because on one hand, sadly, you get paid that much money. Unfair criticisms come with the paycheck. That being said, if fans want to be out of line, I believe fans are allowed to. Like we talk about, they pay the money, both through tickets, merchandise, viewership, all that stuff. Media, and I know this because I am one, media doesn't pay to go to games. Media gets a credential. They're there to cover games. And credit to the Marcus Hayes for showing up in the locker room, because that's kind of the thing, right? Don't ever write or say something that you wouldn't show up the next day. But I do think it is a bit out of bounds to essentially say you are dishonoring your dead brother by not playing early season NBA basketball games. Say what you will about the wording. That's what he said. That's what he said in the column. He basically said, you said your son and your brother, and you wanted to honor both, and, well, you can't do that if not showing up for you. So you just said that Joel Embiid is dishonoring his dead brother. I think he got off light with a shove, to be perfectly honest. Kind of like going back to Jason Kelce. I don't know how Embiid's, if he's going to be punished at all. I don't know what is ultimately going to happen and how big of a shove it was. And I'm not for players physically going after Colin, but you write something like that. I mean, that's where I'm torn. I'm kind of more on Embiid's side on this. Like, you can't be writing that, right?
The shove is still just...
Yeah, I mean, it's not good.
You don't lay hands on a journalist. If somebody laid hands on me at a Beaver game... Yeah,
but what if a journalist dishonored a player's deceased relative? Just we talked about with Jason Kelce.
It's bad.
Smashing the kid's phone.
It's bad.
What's the difference?
And that journalist should not be allowed to cover that team anymore or have a certain period. But it's like anything else, Justin. Just because someone calls you a mean name, does that give you the right to physical violence?
How's that different than the Jason Kelce one?
Well, that one, no one was hurt.
I got you. If he had shoved that kid, so you'd have been like, that's no good?
I mean, I know we're kind of part, but yes, for me, like, he grabbed the phone. That kid didn't get hurt. I'm not saying this journalism, but
Joel
Justin,
Embiid should have grabbed the guy's phone.
But if Joel Embiid shoved, let's just say that journalist like my height, 5'9".
I know.
Joel Embiid shoving me, I am scared.
Yeah, I don't think you would ever though bring up somebody's.
This is a terrible situation. That journalist should never said that. Joel Embiid should never hit him.
It's a hack job of a column. Sorry, it's a hack job.
Yeah,
it's lazy. It's a hack job, and you got your clicks. Good for you. And you're going to get more now. All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk some college football. We have got George Wrighster from the Unafraid Show. Former Oregon tight end is going to join the show next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Oregon went to the Big House, took care of Michigan on Saturday. They improved to 9-0. They are now unanimous number one team in the country in the AP poll. 3 games left in the regular season, but a lot of football to be played with championships and now a 12-team tournament. And who's going to fill out the rest of that bracket? Joining us now, former Oregon tight end. He is the host of the Unafraid Show on YouTube. George Wrighster back on the Big Show. Good morning, George. How we doing?
Man, I'm doing great, man. Excited to be here, and it's a great year in college football.
It's a tremendous year in college. Let's start there. I want to get to the Ducks here in a moment. George, I'll confess, I was one of the grumpy old guys who were like, I was worried about the 12-team playoff. I was worried that the special sauce of the regular season of college football was going to be diluted. I was dead wrong. Because what we are seeing here in November with all the teams that are still in the mix, I was dead wrong. And what this 12-team playoff has meant to the sport, boy, it seems to be each and every week. Whether did Clemson play themselves out, the debate over bubble teams, it's the best thing that's happened in a long time. I was wrong.
I tried to tell everybody. Either you can be afraid of the future or you can embrace the future. That it was always going to make things better. But yes, are there consequences to where the Oregon, Ohio State, or Michigan, Ohio State, or Alabama, Georgia, that doesn't feel like it's for everything, right? Yes. However, though, you get more games that are more important. Like you get multiple games that are highly important, and you know that they're not necessarily for all the marbles until the end of the season when they are for all the marbles. And so you're still going to get those moments. But the most important thing that has happened with the college football playoff expansion is that it's the new normal season. Mm-hmm. Is that you ain't no just rolling your helmets out and win. Everybody has to, show up, play hard, play well if you want to win football games. If not, you will get beat.
George Wrighster is the host of the Unafraid Show, joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, let's talk about the Ducks. George, I felt like with Oregon, and I've been covering Oregon, obviously, for the better part of 20 years, and it felt like with Oregon, even in years where national championships were in the possibility, whether it was all the way back when you guys in 2001, there was always kind of a yeah, but. Hey, Oregon's great, yeah, but they don't want to play Miami. 2007, Oregon's great, yeah, but without Dennis Dixon. In 2010 and 2014, yeah, but they don't have the guys up front in Chip Kelly's offense. It feels like this year is maybe for the first time Oregon in the national title hunt without that yeah but in terms of people talking about them across the country.
Hey, well, I think that and I will tell you for a fact that 2001 team, we wanted Miami. That's who we wanted. Miami didn't want to see us.
Yeah.
Now, I do believe that there is that you do have to be realistic. Yes, Miami was super talented, all this stuff, and look at how many Hall of Famers. But they weren't Hall of Famers in college, and we had a bunch of really good and really talented NFL players on our team as well. And then that Dennis Dixon team, I believe that team would have absolutely won a national championship if his knee doesn't fall apart. Mm-hmm. But to answer your question, though, I do believe that this year is different in terms of the roster, that this roster that it looks good getting off the bus. It stands up comparatively to any other roster in the country. When you look at it from depth and talent, NFL guys, power, speed, that you have everything that you need on this roster to win a national championship.
I know NIL is obviously a part of it. Can't deny that. But also talk about what it must be like to have a guy like Dan Lanning at the helm. Look, you were from California, came up to Eugene, still a West Coast, but it's a world away. I lived in Eugene for a while. I know the differences between Eugene and LA and how different. But to see that Dan Lanning, even with NIL, but the guys that he has been able to pull in, his relentless recruiting ability to get guys to the Pacific Northwest to sell them on Oregon. I know the money is a factor, and all Oregon's critics want to throw out the Uncle Phil money.
God.
Got it, but. The guy that Dan Lanning, the guy driving the bus, and Dan Lanning has got. There's something special about him from a recruiting standpoint, George. And I'm sure, obviously, as a former player, you recognize that just him out there pounding the pavement and getting guys from all over the country, not only out of high school but out of the portal, to buy into Oregon football has been really impressive.
Okay, you are 100% right. I got a question for everybody out here who has. Talking about the recruiting wins and the NIL money, and the only reason why they're going to Oregon is NIL money. Really? Okay. So, do you believe that Oregon has the only billionaire in the world? How come T. Boone Pickens can't do it at Oklahoma State? How come all the money that's flowing through USC can't land top 3 recruiting classes? Why? It's because it's bigger than the money. And when kids show up for the money, they will leave you for the money too. And you see kids stick it out at Oregon. You see them, work their way up the depth chart. Look at a guy like Justice Lowe. Mm-hmm. Nobody expected him to be playing, and there's a reason why. That these schools that are supposed to have so much money, like Texas A&M, but an endless amount of money, why they're not signing the number 1 class every single year, because it is about relationships. It is about pro potential. It's about the ability to win a national championship. And at this point in time, recruits are hopeful of Oregon now and hopeful for the future about not only the program, but themselves and the community that is the program. That means the families, the love, like everything that comes along with it. That's how you sell recruits, because to parents, because I'm a parent of a freshman right now playing college football. And the most important thing to me was about, if I send my son here, will you take care of him like he's your own kid? And you're going to make him mature as a man, as a football player, and he's going to have opportunities on the field if he does his part.
George Wrighster, who is the host of the Unafraid Show, joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. I know you talked about it on your show. People need to be following both you and following the Unafraid Show and be watching it on YouTube. But to kind of recap, because obviously Oregon is the unanimous number 1 team in the country, and with the AP poll. But I think there is an interesting discussion for who could make a case for the number 2 team in the country, with Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State, even Texas being out there. Right now, who do you have as the second best team in the country right now?
Tennessee.
Okay.
And for 2 reasons. Number 1, they have not allowed more than 20 points this entire season. That means in garbage time, full time, whatever. They haven't. And so that is great news. But their redshirt freshman quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, he's now playing good football. I think he finished 18 for 28 for almost 300 yards this week. He's not missing as many big throws. Now, granted, their wide receivers are dropping balls too, but he's playing extremely well, and that bodes for a team that can win. And for all these people touting Georgia, they're the number 2 team. Have you watched them play? If DJ Lagway, true freshman quarterback, doesn't get hurt, a team full of backups and a freshman quarterback and a freshman running back would have beaten Georgia. And then you look at a team like Ohio State. If you watched the television, they sat there and told you lies. They were like, oh, my God, look at that impressive offensive performance from Ohio State. It was amazing. It was masterful. What? They scored 20 points against a team that couldn't move the football. So, of course, you're always in advantageous field position, and every other thing. And all you could muster was 20 points. Your quarterback didn't play great. So the reality is that the TV will try to sell you on the big brands. The TV will try to sell you on, oh my God, there's no way that that Alabama could lose to Boise State. What, they lost to Vanderbilt? There's no way that Indiana could beat Texas, and why not? We've seen them play. And people are going to try to sell you on the nonsense. Do not buy it. Believe what the tape says. Believe what the games say. Believe what the results are.
I want to talk Heisman. We saw Ashton Genty at Autzen Stadium back in September, and boy, he is unbelievable. And I'm sure, obviously, you've seen him on TV, George, and obviously Travis Hunter with what he is doing, which is unlike anything we've ever seen in college football. And then there's Dylan Gabriel, who, I mean, is kind of the best player on the best team, which is always going to be in there in the Heisman mix. If those are the three guys, and I guess I'll throw Cam Ward in there because Cam Ward every once in a while looks like he's the best player to ever play college football, George, and then sometimes he looks like he's never played football before in his life. It's kind of amazing. Yes. But of those four guys and a lot of opportunities ahead, who do you see as the leader right now, and who do you think ultimately brings home the Heisman?
I think that at this point, Ashton Genty is going to he would win the Heisman if it were today. Mm-hmm. However, as the season goes along, he's going to need some more special performances and to get back upon that Barry Sanders pace to break that record if he wants to win the Heisman Trophy. So that's the only way he's going to win it. But then you look at a guy like Cam Ward. His defense is going to give him every single opportunity. And mind you, I said his defense is going to give him every opportunity to a win because he needed 500 yards or 400 or 500 yards passing in the last game to be able to get past a mediocre Duke offense. Now, granted, Duke is playing good football comparatively to what they do historically, but their offense is not a juggernaut. And so Cam, I call it the full Cam Ward experience, where he is going to do some things that wow you, and then he will make it a ridiculous interception like he did against Cal, and then he did the same thing this weekend, the exact same play, rolling to the right, falling out of bounds, tried to throw the ball all the way back to the middle of the field. Like, what do you think is? And then he'll come back and make some heroic plays to win the games. But I don't think that they're going to – well, they're going to cruise to the ACC championship, and he's going to get a chance to Jaden Daniels, his stats, and oh, my gosh, and the kid out of USC too. Oh gosh, because they're over with the Bears now. Why can't I remember his name?
Caleb Williams,
number one over. Yes. There we go. Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. They got a chance to pad their stats because their defenses were so atrocious. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that Dylan Gabriel is not going to get a chance to do. And honestly, even though he should win the Heisman Trophy, that's the thing I do think is going to prevent him from being able to win it because his stats aren't going to be quite as gaudy because of the balance of Oregon's team. And then you consider that they're not giving up, more than like 17 points a game. So it makes it a lot less than that necessary to put up gaudy stats.
George Wrighster joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio, host of the Unafraid Show, former Oregon tight end. And you're there in Los Angeles, George. You are from LA. You are boots on the ground. We got to talk about USC. Where did this all go wrong? What is going on with USC? Because it felt like when they made the move to get rid of Clay Helton and they went big and they got Lincoln Riley, and Lincoln Riley was coming off of multiple playoff appearances, multiple Heisman Trophy winners, and he brought Caleb Williams with him, and they got that 10-win season. And since then, I think SC's sitting around 500. They've lost 4 of their last 5. They've led in every fourth quarter, can't close out games. What is going on there at USC with Lincoln Riley? Where's the disconnect there? What happened?
Yeah, he's 12-12 in his last 24 games. But here's the other thing. I think that there are multiple things at play here. Number one, when he got the Oklahoma head coaching job, right? He was handed it by Stoops, and that was an absolute. He kept a juggernaut going. He has never had to rebuild anything. And so he's learning on the fly how to rebuild it. He was trying to run it like it was Oklahoma, and Caleb Williams masked a lot of the problems because he was such a fantastic college quarterback. And that masked a lot of holes. And then the second year, oh man, this defense is broken. So then he finally fires Alex Grinch. The roster is still not as deep as they needed to be, and now he's got to figure out how to change his whole coaching philosophy to fit playing defense. And he hires really good coaches, and to his credit, did a really good job there. And the team is better in terms of they would have been getting blown out. But the part that obviously concerns me more than anything, it is something that Lincoln Riley said in this press conference after the game this weekend. He said, "Oh, we're only 5 or 6 plays away from people saying that this team is unfreaking believable." And I'm like, what? 5 or 6 plays? When coaches start talking about, we're only 5 or 6 plays away from an undefeated season or something. Those are things people that don't win say, because the reality is that it shouldn't come down to 5 or 6 plays. And you're talking about those 5 or 6 plays. That means you're playing in close games all the time. Now, if you want to be an elite football team, now I'm gonna ask you, how many plays would it take for Oregon to have 5 losses this year?
Well, it'll be 1 play against Boise, 1 play against Ohio State. Who knows against my got real tight against Idaho, that one was weird. I was there in the stadium. It was weird. Yeah, you're right. I mean, you look at a handful of plays here and there, but
no. I'm saying is that for Oregon, it would for them to have 5 losses, you would have to change like 50 plays.
Yeah.
So for really good teams, it's not 5 or 6 plays. That means that you are, and he's doing that against middling teams. It would be different if you were playing against Ohio State and and Oregon and and Georgia and Bama and ranked teams and saying, all right, cool, I get it. We didn't have some things go our way, and it's a couple plays here and there against top competition. But we're talking about this to the likes of like Minnesota and Rutgers and you know what I mean, and Washington and teams that are nowhere near the top 25. So if you're talking about those plays versus middling teams, that means you are a middling team.
George Wrighster from the Unafraid Show joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. One last thing before we let you go, George. I really appreciate your time. The Oregon uniforms this year have been they've been standout. They've been stellar. And obviously Oregon is known for the uniforms. The one that I'm waiting for, and you got to be with me on this, when are we getting the 01 throwbacks? When are we getting the Drake Mallard throwback? They've hinted at them here and there, but I know as a guy that wore those and probably got made fun of a little bit because they weren't always innovative. They were popular, yeah. They were a bit of a joke at the beginning. When do we get the 01 throwbacks? I'm waiting for them.
Oh, they're coming. Just know that they are coming. I'm not at liberty to say when, but they are coming.
Okay.
I'm excited. They are absolutely coming. And that was a special time. And I do love what Oregon is doing with the uniform, because if you notice, there's been like a more return to the traditional colors: yellow, green, white. Throwing some black in there. It's because Oregon got so far out of the box that then everybody started copying, and so now we're like, no, we're bringing it back to our tradition, which is. So they're making our traditional colors innovative in the same process. So that part I think that they've done a great job with, because for so long it was, being outrageous, and now it's like, no, y'all stay out there trying to copy what we were doing 10 years ago. Now we're moving forward in this way. Then you're going to see teams switch back to the way Oregon is doing it because we're trendsetters, and then we'll move a different direction again.
There we go. You can follow him on Twitter or X at George Wrighster, The Unafraid Show on YouTube. Catch him on Mad Dog Radio as well. Hey, George, thanks so much. This was great. Always love talking college football with you. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right, perfect. Thanks.
There you go. George Wrighster, former Oregon tight end, like I said, from The Unafraid Show. I didn't want to correct him, and I think he's off the line now because he brought up T. Boone Pickens. T. Boone Pickens died in 2019. We lost T. Boone Pickens in 2019. That was before NIL, so we'll just let that one sit. We have got the RCM mailbag, though, to wrap up the big show next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, a big thanks to George Wrighster for joining us last segment. That was fantastic. Tennessee, number 2 team in the country. I like Tennessee. I liked him early on in the season, so much so that I learned how to pronounce Nico Iamaleava's name. But he does some freshman stuff every once in a while, too. It's going to get really good. I mean, when you look at the teams because think about it. In the 14, and again, I was wrong. 12-team playoff, especially this year. But, like, in a year like this, where you have Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, there's 5 right there. Notre Dame's still in it. Texas A&M, like, think about all the teams. Could you imagine trying to find 4 teams this year? Good luck. Miami's still undefeated, too. Yeah, no big deal. All right. We got obviously a ton more football to talk about on tomorrow's big show. Right now, though, let's get to the RCM mailbag.
Well, before we open the mailbag, Justin, since you mentioned it, I'd like to do some revisionist history. You would before the season, we'd thrown out teams that were going to make the playoff. And I said Miami, and you said, nah, no way, Jose. And I feel
there's still time.
I feel pretty confident in that.
I would, too.
And I think you threw out NC State, who...
yeah, they stink.
NC State's not doing it this year. But nevertheless...
my sneaky pick was Iowa State.
That's true. I do remember that, too.
They're 8-1, but they just lost.
I just remember you were kind of rooting, and I'm like, that Miami team got Cam Ward, David Martinez, a really good offensive line, and a really good defense.
And I am not a Mario Cristobal hater, right? Oregon ended up much better that he left, and he's where he needs to be. I would not trade Dan Lanning at all. And quite frankly, I would not trade Dylan Gabriel for Cam Ward, to be perfectly honest. I know I sound like a crazy person, but I wouldn't. Give me Gabriel. But I watched so many games where Mario Cristobal coached defeat out of the jaws of victory. Just not a lot, but every once in a while.
Did you graduate to that point? Because I know there was a time when you were seething at the teeth with Mario as well, when Mario left. So I remember that day we did on the show like it was yesterday. So I remember your reaction to that. So because I'm sitting here and
I get tired of Oregon coaches just thinking that the grass is greener when you look at the track record of nobody that has left Oregon is better off than they were at Oregon. Nobody.
Well,
Cristobal is going to be the only one.
We can double down. Absolutely nobody who's left Oregon State has been better off either.
Yeah.
So, and again, like I raise my hand.
How is Nebraska, Mike?
And I just say is like, to your point, Justin, like no one who listens to this program should be surprised. I'm 100% a hater for the guy in East Lansing. And, you know, to your point, not sure if I wouldn't take him back. Well, let's see how the rest of the season comes out because he could win some games here. But I think, like, he's finding out, like, I don't know if Michigan's it, dude.
Well, the Cristobal thing was, it's where he grew up and it was his alma mater. And you have to, like, I think I talked to Fentress about this. Like, if, what's the guy's name from Twisters?
Glenn Powell.
If Glenn Powell said,
hey, where's that Duck movie? Is it coming?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you know.
But if Glenn Powell stole my wife, everybody would be like, oh, I understand.
That took a turn.
You know what I mean, though? Like, everybody would understand. If my wife left me for Glenn Powell, everybody would be like, oh, yeah, I get it. And I'm like, yeah, it still sucks for me, though. When Mario Cristobal left Oregon for Miami, everybody was like, yeah, he played there. They offered him a ton of money. You have to understand, right? I was like, yeah, it still sucks for us. But then Dan Lanning came in. And that's why, you know, you got to let the universe do its thing sometimes.
Yeah, and no release date on the old Chad Powers.
Chad Powers, that's right.
It's going to be on Hulu. So it's, hey, I'll watch it, man. I mean, for what it's worth. I mean, there could be something. The bio, Justin, is the show is about Russ Holiday, a talented quarterback whose career is ruined by bad behavior.
I like it.
So I'm going to be intrigued.
Feels a little bit like a ripoff of The Longest Yard, but not without the prison. But
maybe
I don't know. I'm all for it.
Maybe a little bit, but yeah, let's go ahead and open up the mailbag, Justin. What clock is worst to set back? Like, of all the clocks you've had to adjust.
My truck. My truck now, my wife's car, very nice. It does it on its own.
Mine too.
Good to know. My truck is the hardest one. Microwave was second hardest to set back because of the 24.
Yeah.
That's and it's the first option. So if I power rank clocks, truck is the worst. Microwave, second worst. Third worst, crazy as it sounds, coffee machine, because my coffee machine is set to a timer.
Your coffee machine has a timer on, or has a clock on it.
Yeah, it's got set to a timer. So every morning when I get up, coffee machine starts. Very nice. But so I had to run through not only the time change, but then change all the settings to the timer on it.
Yeah, look at you with your fancy pants coffee machine. I got one where you push it down and press go.
I still have to press go, but it heats up the water on its own, so I don't have to wait for the water to heat up.
Not having to hit that button.
That's 90 seconds. I can't wait.
I can relate to that more than you know. That's fair. In different things, I can relate to that. I really can.
It's like, dude, when you wake up as early as we wake up,
it's true.
You could save 90 seconds.
That's 90 seconds more in the shower, man. Sometimes that's a clutch 90 seconds, too.
I got to hit that while I brush the teeth. The whole thing. But, yeah, that's the list. That's going to do it for the big show. Thanks to George Wrighster. Thanks to super producer Brenden. And thanks to all of you. Have a terrific Monday. We're back at it tomorrow morning, bright and early here on 620 Rip City Radio.